Welcome to Return to Athens. Today we wrestle with the United States team. The Flame arrives at the IOC's headquarters. And in Britain, it's a rapid ride for a canoe squad. All that and more as we return to Athens. Go. For the first time in Games history, women's wrestling is to be an official discipline. And 4 top female wrestlers from the United States are preparing to grapple their way into Olympic history. After denying female wrestlers the chance to enter in 2000, the International Olympic Committee decided to make women's wrestling the only new category this year. The girls have been refining their moves in a high school gym, trained by national coach Terry Steiner, himself a former college wrestling champion.
Well, we're excited about it. I mean, obviously for women's wrestling it meant everything to get the Olympic status. For us personally as a U.S. team, we feel very excited and feel like we should be able to go in there and do some damage. So we feel very good about our chances.
The 4 team members were chosen from among 60 competitors at the recent Olympic trials in Indianapolis. Tella O'Donnell, a 21-year-old Alaskan, is a 2-time world silver medalist and last year's national champion. She was the first athlete selected to be included on the history-making US wrestling team.
The women have been working hard from the beginning till now, and it's neat to have it recognized on an Olympic level. I feel really lucky.
The road hasn't been easy. Patricia Miranda, competing in the 48-kilo category, had to join an all-boys wrestling team while attending university.
On one hand, I feel like a pioneer. On the other hand, I know that I'm very indebted to all the people that came before me. And that's what I think about sometimes, when I'm training, that I want to represent them well. I want our first time in the games to be wonderful, to sort of pay back for all the hard work they spent to get us in the games,
Outside the US, women's wrestling has gained an even greater acceptance, with the Japanese expected to be the strongest contenders for gold.
It's like this instead of...
Steiner believes that Olympic participation is the best way to bring women's wrestling to the attention of a wider audience.
We definitely think it will bring some attention to the sport and let people know that it is available and that it is a real thing, and that wrestling is not only a sport for men anymore. It's a sport that everyone, any size, any shape, any color, any gender can compete in. So we hopefully it opens his eyes to wrestling in general.
3,800 females wrestle at high school level compared to 250,000 boys. Only 6 colleges nationally offer women's wrestling as a sport.
It's a mind-blowing experience just to say that, I'm an Olympian, and to go out there and compete and for my country, and hopefully to stand on that #1 platform and hear the anthem playing behind me with the flag up above my head. It's just something, a lot of people think about, but to actually maybe have that opportunity is just a phenomenal experience.
Women's wrestling will be competed in 48, 55, 63 and 72 kilogram classes. NATO has reiterated their commitment to the Games.
We have been able to decide yesterday in the Council to give support to the Greek government. That is AWACS aircraft, surveillance aircraft. We have a look at Athens from the sea. In other words, maritime patrol and maritime surveillance. We assist the Greeks in civil emergency planning. We assist the Greek government with a battalion which is specifically trained in anti-biological chemical warfare, and that will be in the country indeed, yes.
NATO is expected to provide up to 4 airborne warning and control system surveillance aircraft, more commonly known as AWACS, that will patrol Greek airspace around the clock. They will fly from bases in Germany and Italy, while some of them will use Western Greece's base of Actio. NATO will offer a further 7 surveillance planes that will patrol the Aegean Sea, along with a Greek P-3 Orion aircraft. Around 100 personnel from the Alliance's recently established Battalion for Defence Against Weapons of Mass Destruction, mainly made up of forces from the Czech Republic, will be stationed on the ground but will not patrol the streets in Athens. In March, the Greek government reassured Parliament, where there is traditional sensitivity to international interference in domestic issues, that armed NATO forces would not be deployed on Greek soil during the Games. Faced by warnings that the Games could be a prime target for international terrorists, there has in the end been only token domestic opposition to NATO's involvement. An 8-ship NATO fleet will patrol Aegean international waters south of the island of Crete, as well as Ionian international waters. A Greek officer will take over the command of the NATO-led forces from the beginning of August. Greek military vessels remain responsible for guarding Greece's national waters. Athens is spending €1 billion on security, 3 times the amount spent by Sydney. Greece itself will deploy up to 70,000 military, police and Coast Guard personnel to safeguard athletes and visitors. The controversy over the alleged use of performance-enhancing drugs continues to rage. Sprinter Tim Montgomery allegedly tested that he had used a human growth hormone and that the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative's founder, Victor Conti, told him that he gave baseball player Barry Bonds performance enhancers. That's according to the California newspaper The Chronicle. Conti, who hopes to win a plea bargain by naming those involved in the distribution and usage of the designer steroid THG, denied he'd ever supplied any prohibited substances to the baseball legend. Bonds also publicly denying using any performance-enhancing drugs.
A brief statement today, basically so that everyone can see that I actually do have a voice. First of all, I would like to let the world know that I have never given anabolic steroids or any other performance-enhancing drug to Barry Bonds. In fact, I have never even had a discussion about anabolic steroids with Barry Bonds, and that is the truth. Secondly, I would like to say that I do very much care about the health of the athletes that I work with. The very reason that we do the comprehensive blood testing on the athletes is to ensure their excellent overall health. Finally, I would like to say that if anyone, and I mean anyone, says anything differently than what I'm saying here today, then they are not telling the truth. And at this point, that's all I have to say, and maybe my attorney will take a question or two.
Updating the torch relay, and Antwerp was the first European city to stage the Olympic flame relay. The torches carried through the streets after arriving from Canada.
The symbolics behind it is that the flame burns and glitters anywhere in the world, for every race, without any difference, no matter what ideas you have. This is what the Olympic flame really means.
The 1920 Games were awarded to Antwerp after the 1916 Games were cancelled due to war, an honour to the suffering of the Belgian people during the conflict. Antwerp is remembered for the introduction of the Olympic flag and the presentation of the athlete's oath. Across the Atlantic to Cuba, and at 22, Yoandri Betanzos, the silver medalist in the triple jump at last year's World Championships, has his sights set on Olympic gold.
My goal this year is to jump 1770 and to be among the first 3.
Cuba has a host of potential athletics gold medalists. Another hopeful is javelin thrower Oslades Menendez, who currently holds the world record with a 71.54-metre throw in July 2001.
This year I'm in the Olympics, where I hope to get the title, which is the only thing left for me to achieve in athletics.
The 24-year-old Menendez is looking good and has already thrown 68.23 metres this year at an athletics competition in Havana. Another athlete to watch is the current Olympic gold medalist, Cuba's long jump champion, Ivan Pedrosa. But since 2000, he has been plagued by a leg injury that relegated him to 8th place in the World Cup this year. This in mind, the 31-year-old athlete has been taking precautions in training to ensure he's in top form.
Well, this year I have as my principal objective the Olympics. Up until now, the preparations have gone really well. I have taken care of myself since in the last few years I have been pursued by injuries. I have worked together with doctors and lots of physiotherapists.
These 3 medal hopefuls are all under the training and guidance of Santiago Antunes, head coach of Cuba's athletic team, who is optimistic about the chances for his country this year.
When we talk about bettering our Barcelona performance, these are pretty big and pretty serious commitments. But how is the preparation going currently? At this stage, the objectives have been carried out. We're convinced that we're going well for the next Games.
Returning to the torch relay, and Swiss Olympic tennis champion Marc Rosset carried the flame for the first time onto the grounds of the United Nations European headquarters in Geneva, where officials appealed for peace during the Games. The flame then travelled to the headquarters of the IOC, where President Jacques Droga and Dennis Oswald, the IOC's chief inspector, were among those welcoming it before it headed to Paris, the next leg in the journey to Athens.
Well, it's a special emotional moment in that the torch relay is something that unites the place of birth of the Olympic Games, Olympia, with the next Olympic city. And this torch relay, in addition to that, is passing through all the former Olympic cities. So it is really uniting the world, uniting people of different gender, religion, language, culture, nationality, young and old, famous and anonymous. And that is really what it's about.
Droga completing an Olympic dream.
At the moment, I have indeed been an athlete at the Olympic Games. I've been a team leader. I've been the president of a National Olympic Committee. I have helped to coordinate the Games in Sydney. I've been involved in anti-doping. I'm now presiding over the IOC, but I never had the privilege to carry the flame, and I will do it this afternoon. And that's a great moment. It was the missing link in my Olympic career.
After carrying the torch, we asked the IOC's president, with all the controversy surrounding athletes taking banned substances, if in fact he believed the Games would be drug-free.
I don't know if it's going to be doping-free Games because, you know, you cannot always fight against cheating with 100% security. But I can say that the fight against doping has been stepped up like never before, and that it's going to be more difficult for the chiefs than it has ever been. Of course, I hope there would be no doping case, but it would be naive to certify that that is for sure.
To our series of lead-up events, this time to the German city of Kiel for the Kieler Woche Regatta. The Games, just a matter of weeks away, any world-class competition is welcome. The regatta an ideal opportunity for the top yachtsmen to put their final preparations together. Unfortunately, increasing problems with the wind caused many of the popular events, like the Tornado, to be cancelled. However, the 470 class women's event still went ahead, with Australian Jenny Armstrong able to use the wind to her advantage. In Oz 341, Armstrong nudged past Ingrid Petitjean of France and Katie McDowell of the USA at the turn to take maximum points.
It's always a good regatta. It gives us a good warm-up for the Olympics, and most of the top competitors will be here. So good racing and good conditions, hopefully.
In the star class, the water once again proved choppy for the boats, although conditions are expected to be similar in Athens. Nevertheless, it was Sweden's Fredrik Luf who used the wind to his advantage at the final buoy to sail home to take the victory. He beat off strong competition from Bermuda's Peter Bromby and Holland's Mark Nieleman, all of them athletes to watch if you're thinking of heading to Athens to catch the sailing. Following day saw more stormy weather wreak havoc, testing conditions again for the cream of international sailing to deal with. Man to catch in the Mistral class was Tony Wilhelm with 5 points after 3 races. Wilhelm is currently ranked 25th in the world by the International Sailing Federation, but after this event looks to be improving rapidly. German finished 8th in the World Championship in Turkey earlier in the year and should look forward to the Olympics with confidence. Mate Arapov of Croatia was even more impressive in the laser category, just 4 points his accumulated score again after 3 rounds. Behind him, some of the sport's luminaries. Paul Goodison, ranked number 3 in the world by the ISAF, and a real superstar of sailing, Robert Sheed. A gold medalist in 1996 at Atlanta, a silver in Sydney 4 years later, Sheed is building nicely for another podium finish.
Well, I have been 2 times to the Olympic Games with medals, so my goal is to be on the podium. So I'm trying really hard to be competitive in Athens. Athens will be hard because the winds are very tricky there. So I'm trying to prepare myself as best as I can to do the best possible thing in Athens.
Another update on the torch relay, and the Flame made a spectacular start to its tour of Paris. David Doré, a double Olympic gold medal winner, held the Flame aloft as he was lowered by rope from the roof of the futuristic Stade de France, where Parisians hope to see the 2012 cauldron lit. Outside the Sacré-Cœur, hundreds gathered as the Flame was carried up the steps of Montmartre by the French actor and director Alain Chabat, although some may have just been there to catch a glimpse of a troupe of dancers. Chabat emerged unscathed from his encounter with the Moulin Rouge and passed on the torch to another French sporting hero, skier Jean-Luc Cretier. Paris hosted 2 games, the second modern games in 1900 and again 24 years later. The 1924 games memorable for the introduction of the Olympic motto, Citius, Altius, Fortius, which means faster, higher, stronger. Following a tough selection process, the canoeists chosen to represent Team Great Britain were announced at a press conference in Nottingham.
Competing on a moving platform. And as I've said, this course in...
British Canoe Union Performance Director John Anderson says the chosen athletes have serious medal potential in all classes.
I'm really confident from a canoeing perspective. You know, the athletes that we've got in all classes, flat water and canoe slalom, all have realistic medal-winning opportunities. You know, that's the team that we're taking. We're going to contest for medals in both of the Olympic disciplines.
While the team spent hours back home in freezing waters training prior to selection, the athletes themselves are now all eager to head to Athens as they make the final preparations for the Games. Men's canoe slalom athlete Campbell Walsh looking to be noticed if he's lucky enough to be on the podium.
I do canoe slalom, which is on the white water, and I just love the rush and surge of the water, the speed you get when you're moving around doing those slalom gates. I just love the sport, it's so exciting, and to be able to compete internationally for Great Britain and at the Olympics is an honour.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to Athens. It's like a really awesome sight. The water's like just big and fast and exciting, and the whole scenery, like they've built it into like a stadium. So I'm just looking forward to seeing all the crowds there, and just the training is just brilliant.
Reasonably confident of making a final, so that would be the top 9 places. I won a medal in Sydney, so I'm hoping to win another medal, and it'd be nice to get the gold this time round.
Athens will be a tough challenge for the UK canoeists. They know it will not be plain sailing, but are confident that their hard work in training for hours in unpleasant conditions will pay off. 1924 saw the addition of canoe-kayak flatwater racing to the Olympic program, although it was only incorporated as a display event at the Paris Games. Canoe-kayak slalom entered the Olympic arena much later, making its first appearance in 1972 at the Munich Games. There was an interval of 20 years before the sport reappeared at the Games in Barcelona in 1992. Finally, British celebrities and former Olympians took turns bearing the flame on its journey through the English capital, London. At a rain-affected lawn tennis championships at Wimbledon, historic athletics figure Roger Bannister handed it over to the country's great tennis hope, Tim Henman, as the flame began the 48-kilometre trek.
And the flame's gone out. Oh, it's come back on again. Well...
Some 140 Britons, including several Olympic gold medalists, are to carry the flame past some of the world's most famous landmarks, finishing at the Mall outside Buckingham Palace.
Singles title here on the centre court in 1977.
The relay concluded in the early evening with five-time Olympic rowing gold medalist Sir Stephen Redgrave lighting a ceremonial cauldron in the Mall, where a free concert featured Rod Stewart, Ozzy Osbourne and James Brown. Others carrying the flame included former boxing world champion Frank Bruno, who bore the torch, with a little help from a riverboat, across to the north bank of the River Thames. More on the Flames' final journey back to Greece next week. But that's it for this edition. Remember to keep watching Return to Athens as we bring you the latest in the behind-the-scenes news and views in the lead-up to Athens 2004.